Yeah, so cool. You can see there are people coming in.
Welcome.
Okay, let's start.
Right. Thank you everyone for joining now, but we have 2 minutes to go. We'll wait for more people. Try. Thank you everyone for joining. We are just waiting for another 1 minute, then we'll kick off. Okay, now it's 7 o'clock. Let's get started. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Road to Uni talk. And my name is Emma. I'm the VC course consultant here at QS School. And next to me, I'm really happy to have Emily and Ray here with me tonight. And then they are going to talk about psychology as a uni degree. So if you come across any questions, please pop that in the Q&A session, Q&A area in the at the bottom of the Zoom meeting, and then we will come back to your questions at the end of our talk. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, please give us more information about yourself. Shall we start from Emily?
Hi everyone, my name is Emily. I'm a first year student at Monash University and I'm studying law and arts, majoring in psychology.
Yeah, what VC subjects did you do?
I did 7 in total. So in year 11, I did maths methods and music performance, and year 12, I did English, psychology, legal studies, further mathematics, which is called general mathematics now, and chemistry.
That's very impressive. So moving on to Ray, tell us more about yourself.
Very nice. Hey guys, my name's Ray. I graduated from a Bachelor's of Psychology with honours at the end of last year. In high school, my VC subjects were biology in year 11, and then I did math methods, English language, chemistry, psychology, and drama as well as my other subject. Yes, graduated at the end of last year, and now I'm working full time.
Yeah, so very welcome up both. So our first question is, what's the difference between high school and university? Emily, you just nearly towards the end of your first year of uni, and you're doing a double degree. I suppose you have a very busy schedule as your high school. Can you tell us more about your uni versus high school life?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think the first difference between high school and uni is the social aspect. For example, in uni, it seems to be more sociable. You go out to uni events, make more friends, things like that. But the issue is in high school, you're always stuck with the same kind of people. Whereas when you're at uni, you have to go out and make new friends and also make time and effort to see your friends, which is a challenge for me in particular to juggle that social time and academic work. If not talking about social things, in terms of academic work, uni is a lot more self-directed and orientated. So it means that you have to be on top of your own schedule, be able to time manage, prioritize work and study, which can be difficult challenge as well.
Yeah. How about you, Ray? How do you find?
Yeah, so personally from my experience, what I've found is that high school life is a bit more structured. So, the teachers and the school system kind of plans for you how you progress and, where you kind of go. You do get some freedom of choice in choosing what subjects you do, but in terms of the schedule and, what you have to do and when you have to do it, it's mostly the teachers and the system kind of structuring how your days and your weeks go. Whereas for uni, it's a bit more free in terms of you get to decide on what your schedule looks like. You get to plan around things. And from my experience, because I only did one single course, so I had a bit more free time, and I got to explore and experiment with kind of not just my hobbies, but also with work as well. I got to do quite a lot of different jobs, from working here at QS school to working at a medical clinic, and then also to I also coached a bit of basketball as well. So to do all those different jobs, I got to experience working within the workforce of some different occupations. And in high school, you don't have the time nor the freedom to be able to do something like that. So in uni, it's pretty good to explore.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Emily, can you tell us about what's your normal day like in uni? Is it
Sure.
Double degree students maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
For law arts, I'm only at uni for 2 days a week, but I'm there like the whole day. So
Okay, that's far less than I thought. I thought you could 5 days a week.
No. So I managed to squish it in 2 days. So yeah, I just do classes, about 3 classes each day at uni, and I study in between blocks. If I'm not at uni, I'm either working at QS or other places like privately, or I study, because that's a huge thing that you don't study like just with your workshops or tutorials in uni. You have to do it outside of class time. Or I do a lot of co-curricular stuff with Monash. So like I've done Monash Orchestra, and I'm also in the Law Student Society as well as a committee member.
Right, thank you. Ray, how about you? So from first year to the 4th year of psychology, do you find there's a different arrangement as a university student? Your schedule?
Well, for me, it was I always kind of wanted to do the same thing every year, because it's what I was comfortable with. Kind of with like what Emily does, I crammed everything into as little of
2 days.
So sometimes if I was lucky, able to do 1 day, but most of the time just 2 to 3 days. And then the rest of the time I'd be able to do whatever I want. I could either work or join clubs. So I was part of an adult choir, and I also had basketball coaching, and I've had a couple of basketball teams I played in as well. So it gave me the freedom of time to be able to go explore those type of things as well, rather than just having to be at uni 5 days a week. I was able to cram it into 2 or 3, and then do what I wanted to do in the other days as well.
Thank you. Both of you are very high achievers of VCEs, and we have some year 9 and year 10 audience out there. So can you give them some advice about choosing the right VCE subjects for them, and also some learning tips if you can give to them? Sure. Emily, please.
My main tip in choosing VCE subjects is to choose your strengths and your passions. I know a lot of people get caught up in choosing a subject that scale like will get you the best marks. But personally, if you remember or recall what subjects I said, a lot of my subjects were scaling down subjects, but they were where my strengths laid. So as a result, I would really recommend choosing where your passions lie, what you think you'll do well in, and also enjoy learning, and that will potentially maximize your marks as well.
How about you?
I agree with that point as well. Just if you don't like something, it makes it a lot harder to do well in it, because you're going to not enjoy studying it, and you're going to spend a lot of time to do well as well. But in terms of the specific subjects that you choose, I think looking at the prerequisites that you would need in uni. So if you were to do engineering or something like that, you might need to do a high level of maths. So you want to make sure that you choose that. Otherwise, if you don't, then when you go to uni, you mightn't be able to choose that course to do.
Yes. Important prerequisite, and follow your passion.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. So you both of you did VCE psychology, right? So why did you choose VCE psychology, and when did you make up your mind to do psychology as a uni degree? Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. I chose VCE psychology because it sounded interesting, and I
Yeah.
didn't really know much about psychology in year 10. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of learn about what it meant. And I chose to do psychology as a uni degree in about year 12, I reckon mid year 12. After really learning about the psychology course and seeing that I was really interested and would have liked to progress it in a tertiary level as well.
Nice. How about you?
Yeah, I was kind of similar. So when I chose it in year 10, I didn't really know what I wanted to choose as my last subject, and I had a spare space, so I had a look at what the options were. There was things like accounting and legal, and I said definitely not for me. And so I went the other way, and I saw psychology. I thought that might be interesting, so I chose it. And studying it through year 10 and then into VC as well, I really, really enjoyed what I was learning. And then also seeing how, from personal experience, seeing, family members and friends being affected by mental health, it made me want to learn more about, how people get affected by mental health and what we could do as individuals, but also as a society to help them. And that's kind of what, pushed me to want to pursue it even further into university.
Thank you. Do you find to what extent is the VC psychology related to your university degree? Is it like how advantaged I would be if I take VC psychology? Because for your uni degree, it's only English as a prerequisite, right? You don't have to take the VC psychology. So how advantaged do you think you both are?
Sure. I'll speak from a first year's perspective.
Yeah.
So currently I only do 2 psychology units. One of them is like a foundational psychology, and the second is like a scientific writing unit of psychology. I would say VC psychology for Monash Uni is very helpful for the first foundation psychology unit. It lays out very similar like points in the study design that you also learn in uni currently, and we just kind of build on those content and those knowledge and things like that.
Ray, as you have done all the 4 years of psychology, what's your standpoint?
So I agree with Emily. It's a very good starting point. So the first couple of units that you do in university are basically a majority of what you learn from VCE. So by doing it early in VCE, you kind of get a little bit of a head start. So it does help you in that retrospect, and help to build that foundation of how to write scientifically and research methods, and then also the basic knowledge that you would need. But then going on to further studies of psychology, it's a good thing to have. But yeah, it's definitely not a necessity in terms of if you don't do it, you can't do psychology. So if you haven't chosen psychology and you're already in year 12, don't be put off. Psychology is always something that you can go into when you get to uni.
Yeah, that's quite important. Thank you. So we just touched a bit about on the next question: name of your degree, major, and why you chose to study it. So yeah, so let's talk about psychology in Monash. What's the VCE entry requirements?
Sure. For Monash, last year's lowest ATAR was 80.05. And the prerequisite, as we said, was English. So I think it's around a study score of 27 for if you're doing mainstream English or English language, and EAL is 30, I think.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah. Do you guys know any scholarship options going to Monash, or did you have any scholarship?
Not personally. I just filled out the VTAC form for scholarships, and I didn't. But if you wanted to know more about scholarships, just hop onto the Monash website or whatever uni's website, and you will find the whole list of scholarship options.
Thank you. Emily, you just mentioned you're currently doing 2 units of psychology. One is a bit more like VCE, right? I understand like that. And then the second one is scientific writing. And Ray, how about you? So what was the full, can you give us a full picture of the psychology course? What did you learn? What's your subjects?
So there's plenty. So when you do psychology, because I chose to do the Bachelor of Psychology. So they allow you to explore a lot of different types of psychology before you narrow down in honours and masters. You want to do further study as well. So you learn a lot. So just some examples are, developmental psychology. So about, kids and when they grow up, and about how to, treat them the right way and help them develop into healthy individuals when they grow up. And then there's also abnormal psychology. There's also like you learn more specifically about sleep and how sleep affects the brain and behavior. And then there's also stuff like perception and cognition. So you learn about how individuals perceive things and the differences between how different people perceive differently, and then how that would affect how they think, that kind of stuff. And then there's also obviously the other side where you need to learn about research methods and how to conduct research, and statistics as well, because it's a vital part of conducting research.
Throughout your degree, did you write a lot, or what's the assessment?
Yes, so there's a lot of different types of assessments, but I'd say the majority of it, and a lot of it, would be research reports and scientific writing. So learning about and how to write properly early on is a good habit to make, because it just makes your assessments easier on as you go down the track. It means that you don't have to relearn how to write scientific reports and essays as you go down.
Do you learn scientific writing in BC psychology, or that's only in uni?
You do in one. There's like a SAC component that's an assessment that is built on scientific writing. Right. But I don't believe many schools go into it in detail. Like you cover like the basic introduction, discussion methodologies, but in uni it's kind of expected you really know how to write it. Okay. So I don't think it's taught very well, but it's a good thing to get onto really early.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, so we've got a question from Bruce, who's in year 11. They asked, is there any difference in terms of course outlines and job perspectives between Melbourne Uni and Monash Uni on psychology and law? Do you have any idea of this question? Melbourne versus Monash on psychology and law. Anything to talk about?
I think the main difference between Melbourne and Monash is the degree you're studying. So one of the main reasons I chose Monash was because I could pursue a double degree, whereas Melbourne you cannot. So therefore I could do psychology and law at the same time. But in terms of job prospects, there's not really much difference, because you still have to go through that kind of psychology accreditation pathway, which is all the same for most unis.
Yeah. Ray, do you have any to add?
And also like from what I believe, the courses are a bit different between Monash and Melbourne in terms of psychology. In Monash, you have the option to do a bachelor's of psychology, so you just do psychology.
Yeah.
You can also do it in arts and science as well. Whereas in Melbourne Uni, you can only do it in a bachelor's of arts or a bachelor's of science, and then you major in psychology. So you would have to do other majors and minors as well with the psychology that you do if you were in Melbourne Uni. Whereas for Monash, you just do psychology if you were to do the Bachelor of Psychology, which is kind of the pathway that I took. And that was one of the reasons why I went to Monash, because it was all psychology and I didn't really want to do anything else. So I just wanted to focus on that and dive straight in.
Yeah. Do you know anyone, or do you have any friends who study psychology in Melbourne Uni, and how do they find it? Do you know? Just curious.
I've got one friend that did it at Melbourne.
Yeah.
And he told me that it was kind of what I thought it would be. You have to do other things as well as just psychology. And luckily for him, he was interested in biology as well, so he did that as well. But for someone like me, it would be a bit of a struggle to force myself to do biology, seeing as I'm not very passionate about it. So it depends on, if you have other interests, it's good to go and explore that way. But like Emily said, if you do want to become a psychologist, then you have to go through the accreditation pathway. So you have to go into honours and and then also you have to do a master's or PhD afterwards as well. So that bit is the same everywhere, no matter where you go. So it's just the start, the bachelor's, that might be a bit different between the universities.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. If there you are wondering whether you should go to Monash and Melbourne, you can listen to Ray, what Ray just said. So, okay, let's move on to the next part. It's a big part. So do you have any suggestions to students who wants to do psychology from, for example, year 10? I'm just determined to go into the psychology degree. What suggestions can you give them? Starting from Emily.
I think my main suggestion is to find out what really motivates you to study psychology. Psychology is has a lot that encompasses psychology. So finding what really inspires you or encourages you to study psychology, I think will really help you get through the course and things like that. So whilst you don't have to be certain on what kind of you want to major in and things like that, just knowing an idea of why you're studying. So for example, understanding human nature or wanting to understand yourself and others around you will be a really good starting point to help you foster that love of psychology.
Yeah, thank you. Ray.
Yeah, I agree with what Emily said in terms of your motivation is very important, and just building on after high school and going into the university, if that is what you want to do, just exploring the different types of psychology there are out there allows you to kind of gain a better understanding of which kind of pathway you want to take earlier on, rather than having to figure it out as you are in the middle of it. It kind of gives you a pathway of, okay, I need to be good at this, need to be good at that, so you can work on the skills needed to allow yourself to get to where you plan for yourself to be.
Right. Can you tell us what exactly are the areas of psychologists? Can you give us some names?
Yeah, so there's the standard one that I'm sure a lot of people know. It's the main one, clinical psychology. So it's the one where you sit with someone else and you work through their problems, and there's a lot of different techniques and tools that you can use to help them with their problems. So that's clinical, but then there's also organizational, which is you work in companies, so businesses, to help them find the best way to utilize their workers, and you usually help to hire people and find people that will work best as a team together and create a high performing environment for the company itself.
That's one of the HR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of HR as well, that side. And then there's also forensic as well. So that's kind of, you work with the police and jails and that kind of stuff to work with those people who are seen as a bit abnormal and out of society. There's also educational and developmental as well. So that's you work with kids in schools, and also developmental clinics. So you help kids work on their needs to help them develop into bright young adults.
Right. So you did a honors year of your psychology degree. So can you tell us more about the fourth year? Is it just an independent area, or you keep learning from the previous 3 years?
Yeah, so it's a bit you keep on learning from where you were, but it specifies a little bit in terms of you need to do. So there are extra subjects that you get put on, just like in normal uni, you have to do subjects every year. But then there's also a research project that you have to do. So it's not as big as a master's or a PhD one, where you have to spend a lot of time and do everything by yourself and figure out your way. You kind of get a bit of help with your tutors that work with you very closely, but it's just practice for you to go into the further study, where you have to conduct your own research and write reports and come up with conclusions from the research that you did.
Right. Thank you. Many students, many audience ask, what are the career paths for psychology students? And let's start from Ray, because you're not working in psychology anymore.
No,
can you tell us more about?
So like I said before, there's all those different types of psychology that you can work in. So that is if you become a registered psychologist, which means that you have to either do a master's or a PhD and then go through the accreditation pathway, first being probationary and working a couple of years and then getting a full license.
Yeah, that takes how many years, do you know?
Or from memory, it's been a while since I thought of it, but I think you need to work in, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like 2 or 3 years as a probationary psychologist before you can get your full license and become a full-time psychologist. And then that's after you graduate from the masters and or the PhD, depending on which one you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't become accredited psychologist, you can always go into counseling. So there's an extra course that you don't have to do in uni, but you can do either through TAFE programs or just online programs that you can find. So you can become accredited counselor and you can counsel people through their problems. So it's kind of, you sit with them and you talk about their problems and you help them find the best way to deal with it from their perspectives. You can also go into marketing as well, because psychology is something that's used a lot in marketing in terms of understanding how people think and catering a product or marketing a certain way where it entices people to either purchase or use a service, whatever the thing you're marketing is. Or you can go into what I currently do, which is sales.
Yeah.
So working in sales, so I work in real estate at the moment. Shout out Auntie Edgar. But yeah, I sell and help people buy property. Understanding people and their mindsets and what their needs and wants are is very important. And understanding how people work psychologically helps a lot in terms of I meet a lot of new people every day, and it helps me get a better understanding of who they are by, understanding by previous knowledge which I've learned from uni.
Thank you. Emily, do you have anything to add on, or do you have any idea of what you're gonna do in the future?
I don't have any ideas of what I'll do, just because it's really early on, and plus I'm doing a double, so I don't know if I want to go down law, strictly psychology, or even combine it in the future. We'll see. But one thing I would add is, as Ray emphasized, you do have to go through a certain accreditation pathway. So I think a common misconception is that if you do Bachelor of Psychology, you're a psychologist immediately, but that's incorrect. You'll have to go through your normal bachelor degree. As Ray said, there's a few different options. Like you do a master's or PhD, and then you have to do probationary and then so on. So yeah, it's not as quick and easy. So it's like about maybe 7 years at least to become a licensed psychologist.
Yeah, it's not easy. So are there any, so you mentioned the combination of psychology and law. Do you have any any idea of the jobs that relate that combines both degrees, both topics?
Not really, just because it's quite a unique combination. I know that when I got into Monash this year, I was trying to reach out to a few people who did law psychology, and I only found like one other person, two other people. Yeah, it's not very common combination. But one thing that immediately pops into my mind is like if you're in a courtroom and you are giving witness testimonies or evidence, you might need a psychologist to come in and like verify the information and things like that. So that's a very clear example where there's an intersection between law and psychology.
Yeah, thank you. Ray, as you just graduate, how many of your school course mates just going to the accredited psychology pathway, and how many they like you, they I won't say dismay, but just don't do psychology as their job.
Well, I feel like from my personal experience and most of the classmates that I had around me, like 75% of them continued to study.
75.
So quite a lot of them. I guess they were just a lot more passionate than I was. But so they went to do masters, and a couple of them went to go to a PhD. But then some others also decided not to, and took other avenues out. So I know a couple of them did study something else, so they went to go study like education to become teachers as well. So it's not like you can't use it and move it on to something else. So you can always like my other friend did go into education. So yeah.
Right. So how well is the psychologist paid? Do you know?
I think that varies depending on where you work, of course. Right. Some clinics would pay more than others.
Okay.
From what I know, the standard starting would be around I think it was $85,000 to $90,000
That's not
per
bad.
year. Yeah, and that is as a probationary as well.
Yeah,
So you're not
yeah.
on your full license, and then it can obviously go up, a lot depending on how good you are, where you work, and how many clients you bring into the business. Yeah.
Yeah. So our final question on the list is: do you have any further plans on future studies? I know Ray, you're already a full-time employer. So how about you, Emily? Do you plan any further studies after your double degree?
I'm not quite sure yet.
Not sure.
There was a question about like going overseas to
Yeah.
study. That's definitely something I would consider, but I just haven't really looked into it yet.
Yeah,
But I would
still
do that. Yeah, maybe in like 3rd or 4th year, we'll see. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And that's what I got from the normal list. So let's just go some free what's it called? Freestyle questions. So yeah. So Ray, from your coursemate that didn't go to psychology, you mentioned education and yourself going to sales. Can you give us some more ideas of what job they're doing now?
Well, like I said, you can go into counseling as well. Because going into, so if sitting down with people and meeting people and talking to them about problems is the main thing that you want to be doing, then counseling is also an avenue that you can take rather than having to become a psychologist. Because being a psychologist, you learn to use a lot of different scales and tools, and also learn about more scientifically how these things work. But if it's just about understanding people's problems and wanting to speak to them about it, you can always go into counseling as well. And going to HR as well. You don't have to be an organizational psychologist to work in HR. You can go into HR and work within a department for companies that do have HR. And education is, I think, a big thing as well, where it's very important to understand the children and their mindsets, and how to treat them in order to help them develop in the right way, in a healthy way.
Yeah, thank you. That's give us a lot of ideas if you are wondering what a psychology degree students can do. And Emily, do you have any questions to ask your senior Monash graduate? Ray?
Yes. Well, at Monash, there are a lot of different clubs and societies, and one of them is the psychology one, called SNAPS. And I was wondering if you were ever involved with SNAPS.
I went to a couple of the free barbecues, and some movie nights, but that's about it. I wasn't part of the committee or anything. I felt like most of the activities I did was out of uni, in different groups. Here and there, music and sport and stuff. But, I didn't do too much in terms of uni committees. But I've heard that it's very fun, and from the barbecues and the movies, it was great fun for me.
Sure. Right. What are the characteristics you find in psychology uni students? Are they all similar or different, or what can you say about them?
They're the smartest kids out there. Just like most courses, every student is different. Every individual, thinks in a different way, and they have different skill sets. Better at this, better at that. So I don't think you can put necessarily a box on a tag on what psychology students are. But I would say that a common interest they would have would be to understand people's behaviors and wanting to understand why people think a certain way more than the normal person, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Emily, anything to add on, or just agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And like everyone comes from a lot of different backgrounds. So again, I wouldn't label anything. But you'll probably find that, in first year, they always ask the question like, why are you studying psychology? Usually everyone that's just like, I did BC psychology. So it's definitely like a good way to get an insight into psychology, but not a must as well.
Yeah. I've read from somewhere that BC psychology is the second biggest option that students choose under obviously English. Do you guys have any comment to say about this, Emily?
I would probably agree with that statistic. Especially I did psychology last year, and a good chunk of my cohort did psychology as well. And I think the main reason probably is after the pandemic, I think there was a heightened sense of understanding mental health and psychology just in general, especially within like pandemic grounds and things like that. So that's probably one of the main reasons that probably psychology has jumped a lot.
Yeah. But in your degree course, is mental health really a big part to look at in the psychology degree, or it's just
I haven't personally gone to mental health yet, but I'm sure it's something you go into.
Yeah. So it is something that's very important. But I think that plays most into just how important it is in society, I guess. There are also other points of psychology, that you do learn and that are vital building blocks upon mental health, because everyone's mental health issues are very different from each other, and they're caused by different stresses and different events and stuff. But I think understanding people's thoughts and why they think a certain way, perception and cognition and all that kind of stuff, it's a building block that leads to mental health as a general concept. And I think uni does a very, very good job to teach the building blocks and how that leads to the overarching theme of mental health and mental health issues.
So both of you believe that studying psychology can improve one's mental health? Is that what you think? Right?
I think it depends on the individual themselves
Yeah.
and how good they are at introspective thought and looking within themselves to truly be honest and say, okay, I'm like this, I'm like that, okay, I need to work on this. And that's a skill that needs to be learned. It's not something that everyone's just naturally good at. It takes a lot of balls to say I'm not good at something, and to look within yourself and work on yourself, like, truly. And so I think I do think that learning psychology does help with that. It helps you to give you a bit of a bravery push to actually go ahead and think about yourself in that kind of light. And yeah, I think it's very good that psychology is becoming a much more popular thing to study, because mental health and understanding other people's thoughts is a very important thing within society, because it will help us treat everyone better and just create a more positive environment for everyone to live.
Yeah, that's very well said. Emily, anything to add on?
Yeah, and to add on, as Ray kind of insinuated, psychology is something that's an ever-growing kind of field with like changing needs of society. So like, especially now, there's a really big input of like understanding different cultures and how they perceive different areas of psychology. And a key focus is like Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture in psychology. So I guess it not only does it help you understand yourself, but also allows you to become more culturally competent, understand the world around you as everything changes as well.
Yeah, thank you. Is there more girls studying psychology than boys?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the ratio in your degree, in your class?
For me, it was something wild. It was like 10 to 1.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I think in
a
a class of like 20 or so kids, there was 2 boys. So me and another male student, and then everyone else was girls. Maybe that might change as time goes on. But that was my experience.
Yeah, Emily, same thing.
Definitely more predominantly girls in psychology, but in my tutorial there's like about, let's say 20. I think 75% would be girls, so not that big of like a ratio. We might drop out later in the future, but that's how it is currently.
How about in your law theory part? Is it kind of balanced?
No, law's still quite female dominated.
Oh, really?
There's definitely more males, but than psychology, but still quite female dominated.
Very interesting. Fine. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to type it in the Q&A section, and I just saw one, so we're gonna answer this one. Do you have any tips on revising for the end of year psychology for exams? That's a very important question. So thank you, Jin. Starting from Emily, what's your top tips for psychology revision?
I think the main trouble a lot of students have with psychology BCE is that there's a lot of content to kind of understand and consume. So I think my the best tip I can give you is to try and, number one, teach other people. As probably most people know, teaching is when you know that you've truly understood the content, and when you're able to teach other people, and even people who don't understand psychology, that's a really good way to know what you're not understanding. The other way is if you don't really have the ability to, like, the means to teach other people, like you don't have anyone to teach. I used to just grab a whiteboard and just write down all the information I know about a certain topic and cross-check it with my notes to see what I've forgotten. And that's a really good way to check if you've got all the content.
That's a really smart revision tip. Ray, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I think like what Emily said, there's a lot of content, and sometimes when you just look at it from a holistic perspective, it's very, information overload. Right, so it's I think it helped me in both high school and in uni to break up the subject into smaller sections. So I say, okay, what are the main topics that are important, and then from those main topics, I'd break them up even more into smaller subtopics as well. And it helped me build, little by little, and then I would, eventually understand everything about one, topic, and then again, I'll do another one where I'd eventually slowly understand another, topic, and it builds, and then, eventually I'd understand everything together. So, don't be rushed to, and don't put yourself into a situation where you have to memorize everything in one night. That's never a good thing. Start early so that you have time to break things apart and do little by little, where that you can thoroughly understand what you're learning. Because if you do it in one night, you're not going to actually understand. You're just pumping information into your brain, and that's not the best thing, especially if you want to go and study further on. If you study the night before, the information goes in after you've done the exam, boom, it's out of your head and you never remember it again. And I've learned that from personal experience, so don't do that. Whereas if you spend the time to actually deeply learn what you're studying, the information that you're learning stays with you a lot longer. And especially in something in like psychology, where the information that you learn early on builds upon the information that you're going to be learning in the future, it's very important to understand everything that you've gone through so far. So start early.
Yeah, that's very important. What do you find the most difficult part in BC psychology? What's the most difficult topic, or the thing you like the least? Do you have one, or you just love psychology?
Probably research methods.
Okay.
I heard from my BC teacher that a lot of schools don't teach research methods, which is pretty surprising to me. Like, because there's so much content, they usually get through all the actual content and miss out research methods, but it's a huge chunk on the BC exam. So definitely revise research methods.
Research. How about you?
Same, and it definitely showed in uni. Research methods was not my favorite at all, and I kind of swept it under the rug. You can get by in VCE, but then when it comes to uni, I struggled a lot. So it was a lot more difficult, and I had to relearn a lot of things that I should have already known. And so it kind of slowed me down, and I guess not studying it early on, and like what I said before, not deeply understanding it from before affected how I understood the concept and future concepts later on in the future. And research methods and statistics are two very, very important things in psychology. And in research, conducting research, and not everyone would want to become a researcher, right? A psychology researcher. But in order to become a accredited psychologist, you have to be proficient in it. You have to, at least get by. And so by starting early and being good at it early, it makes it a lot easier for you later down the track when you want to become a psychologist who works in a clinic, or works in educational clinics, or works as an organizational psychologist. So understand it early, and it'll make it a lot easier for you later on.
Right. So what can one, for example, me do to improve my research method? Any books you recommend, or any textbook, any learning materials that you would recommend?
I don't know about learning materials, but possibly if you go online and read papers published, which might be the easiest. So because research methods has a very clear methodology, like it's that introduction method, things like that. So if you even just pique your curiosity, search online some topics of research in psychology and go on like Google Scholar or something, I think that might be a good outline in seeing what are the requirements, what do you have to outline in each section.
Yeah, so to learn from the already published articles and stuff. How about you, Reid? Any?
There were a couple textbooks that really helped me that my tutors in uni recommended that I look at.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact name, but it was something like how to write psychology reports, or like yes, something like that. But if you guys do want to know, then ask the Cure staff, and I'll get back to them with an answer so they can let you know later on down the track. But yeah, understanding and reading those textbooks kind of help you understand the structure a lot more. And then for statistics, there are also a couple textbooks out there as well that help you understand statistics earlier on.
Okay. How about, so psychology, VC psychology only tests your Unit 3 and 4 knowledge, right? So how about Unit 1 and 2? Did you both take Unit 1 and 2 in your school?
Yes, I did take Unit 1 and 2. But as you said, it's not actually tested in the final exam. So even if you don't do Unit 1 and 2, you're not at a disadvantage or anything.
Yeah. So what are students learning in Unit 1 and 2 and Unit 3 and 4? What's the like topics?
Unit 1 and 2 covers actually a lot of things you cover in uni psych. So like sensation perception, group norms, but some other things. I don't entirely remember.
It was a long time ago for me, so I don't remember too much from what I learned in high school. So I can't comment on that too much, but you can always have a look online. Look at the curriculum that you can find on the VC website, and that'll tell you everything that is studied in both 1, 2, and 3, 4 VC psychology.
How about 3, 4? What's the topics you're looking at 3, 4?
The main ones is like nervous system, sleep, types of learning, mental health, phobia.
So really clearly doesn't know what VC is about.
What Emily said.
It's a new study design, so
yeah, because Emily, you're giving a crash course next term from week 6 to week 11. That's 5 weeks of VC psychology. So what are you gonna teach? Can you give us some hints?
Well, as I suggested before, research methods is very poorly learnt, so I'm going to focus a lot on research methods and really break it down. And we'll do a bit of a head start to Unit 3 by starting off with the human nervous system as well.
Good. If you're interested, do not miss Emily's. Okay, we got another question. Do you guys have any tips for answering 10-mark questions? And how in demand is psychology jobs in Australia?
Sure.
Yeah. I will just put it out there.
I'll do the tips for 10 markers first. As Ray kind of said before, psychology is like the best way to study it is to kind of break it up into chunks. And that's seen on the VCAR page on the study design. So the study design outlines like Unit 3 have to learn these points, and it comes in dot points as well. So it's a good cross check for whether you've learned everything you need. And all the 10 markers revolve around one of those topics. So the main thing is if you can try and get across every kind of point in that study design under that kind of section, that really shows that you've understood the content of it. Another main part is being able to link it to the stimulus. So usually there's a scenario, and being able to thread the content with the stimulus is essential as well. And the final thing I would say is write a plan with how you're answering 10 markers. Don't just go on a stream of consciousness writing, making sure that each paragraph has a certain dedicated purpose. Yeah.
Right. Ray, you are going to answer the second question. How in demand is psychology jobs in Australia?
From what I've seen and what I predict in the future, I think that psychology is something that's growing in terms of awareness in Australia, and we can already see that by how many people are starting to take it up in VCE. And with how that works in terms of the jobs, I think a lot more people are wanting to go to see psychologists and use their services. So there's going to be a lot more jobs out there, ready for you guys to grab if you want to become psychologists out there. So yeah, I think it's a it's a very fast and quickly growing field within the medical and medical services field.
Yeah, especially if we link the development of AI, and then you are more like the jobs are more focusing on the human mind and your mental health. So psychology definitely is something that's growing. Okay, let's see. We have another one. Okay, we do have about 10 minutes to go. If you have any questions, don't hesitate, just put that in the Q&A section and we will answer it. Don't be shy, we're very friendly. We will answer anything. So yeah. So how long is the VC psychology exam? You just have one paper, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember how long.
You don't remember?
1 hour 30?
1 hour 30.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not asking you.
Yeah.
I'm just asking Emily.
Good idea. Good choice.
Yeah. So how many term markers are there? Is it only
There's only one term marker. It's
Oh.
at the very end of the paper.
Oh, okay. So that's why most students are struggling about.
Yes, yes.
I got it. So yeah. Do you have how many secs did you do in psychology? You don't remember?
4 or 5,
4 or 5.
one for each area of study.
Yeah. So just to let you know, Emily got a full mark. So ask her anything. Full mark in psychology. Yes. So that means you did great throughout all the secs, right? And the final exam, or you missed out, didn't perform well in one of the secs. Can you tell us what?
I performed pretty consistently throughout all my SACs. But again, it really, to get a high mark or high study score at the end, it depends on SAC marks, how your school performs, how you're ranked, and finally how well you perform in the final exam as well. Yeah. So yeah, to get a high mark, you have to make sure you're consistent with SACs and your exam mark, or either your exam mark pulls up your SAC marks or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So apart from the 10 marker questions, so the what's the paper like? Do you have short answer questions?
Yes. So there's like about 50 multiple choice questions.
Okay.
And then you go into short answer, we'll say about 7 or 8 more a short answer, and then you've got that 10 marker at the end. Yeah.
So you don't have to write essay like English in the psychology.
I'll take 10 markers pretty
It's
close to an
pretty
essay.
close.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, not really otherwise.
Yeah. What about time distribution? How long do you put into the 10 markers versus the
I'm not sure on average. I
Yeah.
was pretty quick at writing.
right?
So time wasn't that big of an issue for me. But I would dedicate probably 20 minutes to a 10 marker.
Okay.
But that's because I had a lot of time. So it would vary amongst other people as well.
Right. So is writing really important in psychology uni as a uni degree, or
in a uni degree, I would say yes. Not quite that you have to be eloquent and very flowery in your writing, but
Yeah.
clarity in your thesis statement and what you're actually saying is really important.
Yeah, it's when you're writing in psychology, especially scientifically, it's more about being coherent and concise. Short and sweet, get straight to the point, rather than in English where you spice it all up with your language. So they, especially when you have tight word counts, you don't really have the chance to use a lot of emotive language in there. You have to try and be as short and sweet with what you're writing as possible, so that you can get as much information as you can into whatever you're writing.
Yeah, academic writing is quite different from English essays.
Yes.
Yeah, so get practicing from year 10 maybe scientific writing. Okay, let's see if I missed out any questions. Here. So, do you have a favorite psychology subject, Ray?
Let me have a think about it. I think my favorite psychology subject that I did in uni was I forgot what the unit was called, but it was learning about the different types of therapy. So there's a lot of different styles of treating a patient or a client, as they say in modern day psychology. So it was learning about all the different styles and how people came to create these styles and their thoughts behind bring up these different tools that that psychologists would use. And even today, whilst there is a general consensus of what is the best way to be a psychologist and the best methods and tools to use, there are still other branches where psychologists feel that certain styles are better than others. And I think that was very interesting for me to learn, because that was something that I felt very passionately about in terms of working with people and helping them to work on whatever problems they had. So just seeing the different ways that all psychologists in the world would think, and think differently, I think was pretty interesting for myself.
That sounds really interesting. How about you?
I'm not sure about unit because I haven't done much yet. But I would say, just in general, what I've really enjoyed learning about psychology, about like quite subtly, is that language is a huge thing in how psychology is shaped, especially in society. So we use a lot of stigmatizing terms, negatively connotated terms to address psychology. Like in the past, we used to call mental health as mental health illnesses, but now we stray away from that to go mental health disorders, to really get rid of the negative connotations between associated with illness. So I thought that was really interesting in how I can craft my language use better in the real world to really ensure that I'm more inclusive to other people as well.
Yeah, right. So in your everyday job, Ray, do you use any psychology knowledge or
Well,
can you give us some examples, like interesting ones?
Like what Emily said, the way that you frame certain things when you say it affects how people receive and perceive the information that you're giving. Sometimes when I have some not so good news to tell a client, you can't really be too direct with it, especially if you see them as someone who's not going to take it as well as others. So you have to be very careful and with the language that you use, so that you don't upset them, and they can still be relatively happy after receiving some not optimal news. And then also just because when people are buying and selling, there's a lot of communication that goes on, especially when it's something as big of an asset as property. So understanding psychology and understanding how certain things might affect people's mindsets and their train of thought is pretty important, because it helps me decipher what the best way to proceed would be in certain situations here and there.
Yeah, that's very useful. So as for me, my stereotype for psychology students that they are very introvert, but I see you guys both very extrovert person.
I wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't say that? So,
no.
So you think your course-mates is most of the girls?
Okay.
Would you say they are introvert or outgoing, or?
I would say everyone. Yes, that's a good conception that everyone's probably introverted. But you said that. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm actually pretty introverted.
Really?
I'm not extroverted.
Okay.
It's really just, I guess, developing those public speaking skills, talking to other people, socializing. Probably makes me seem like I'm extroverted, but no, I'm pretty
very
introverted.
good at public speaking.
Thank you.
Tell, so that's why I thought. Ray, do you find yourself introverted or extroverted?
I'd say more extroverted. Mostly just from the fact that I just do whatever. I don't really box myself into having to do certain things. So I just feel like I'm just more free with the way that I behave. Most of the time that's a good thing. Sometimes not so much, but
Okay, I can see there's one question coming in the Q&A section. Right, so Jean also asks, do the 10-mark questions at the end of VC exam include the entire years of knowledge, or does it tend to focus on one topic?
It focuses on one topic. So for example, it might focus just on mental health or just learning, and sometimes it can be very specific on what dot point as well. So yeah, never entire year's knowledge.
Yeah. So the way you prepare for the 10-mark questions is it the same that you draft many topics that focusing on this one, or you don't get it?
You can't really draft it because it's very stimulus specific. But I think the method I did, where I just like kind of regurgitated everything on a whiteboard, was really helpful, because I did it based on topic, and that was really helpful. If I saw a specific topic, I would know that these are the points I have to address. Yeah.
Right, thank you. So we got, I think in our audience, most of them, they are doing a psychology VC subject, or they want to do one. So yeah, maybe we can talk more about VC psychology exams. So do you find the multiple choice questions the easiest ones to do? Or they can be quite tricky?
I found it as the hardest ones to do.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not sure if everyone's heard, but last year's exam was actually pretty tricky, especially the multiple choice. I came out of it thinking I bumped the whole exam. So yeah, so I think multiple choice is tricky because it's got those kind of answer options which are really similar. So it's very hard to kind of choose the best option. Whereas for me, short answer, I kind of knew what it was referring to. So it was easier for me to kind of write correctly rather than multiple choice.
Yeah. Do you remember any multiple choice questions? This is very difficult, but can you give us an example, like what exam style questions looks like?
For multiple choice?
Yeah, or short answer, anything, or type market questions. I just want
okay. Multiple choice is a bit tricky, so I won't go through that.
Yeah.
Maybe for short answer, you might get like the mental health question, and it asks like it might have like some statistics on like a study someone did, and it might be like, oh, is this a mental health problem or a mental health illness? Explain what kind of therapy you would use in this case. Or like in a 10 marker, it would be quite similar. So you have like a huge stimulus saying, let's say someone has a phobia of something, and you have to suggest some possible treatments for them, how they maybe acquired or like maintain their phobia and things like that. So yeah.
Thank you. So if you are still in year 10, year 11, you can get a touch of VC psychology exam. So yeah, now we are at 8 o'clock right now. So thank you so much for you guys who stayed until this time and listened to our talk. I hope it's helpful, and whatever, if you have VC exam coming, the best of luck to you. And if you want to do psychology next term with Emily, don't hesitate to contact us. So yeah, have a great evening, and I hope everyone has gotten a lot from this talk. And thank you again to our wonderful speakers, Emily. Thank you so much. So yeah, have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.